back to the Jackie Griffin Show, and we are joined on set now with Dr. Joanne Martin, and she is the co-founder and president of the America's first Wax Museum of African American History. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about Dr. Martin.
Well, Dr. Martin would be Doctors Elmer and Joanne Martin. My late husband Elmer and I co-founded the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum. Our history goes back to 1983 when we moved into a small storefront in downtown Baltimore. And actually back before that, we purchased 4 wax figures that we would take around the city of Baltimore, D.C., and communities nearby, set up as exhibits, and then take them home with us to our 2-bedroom apartment. So if you'd come in at any given time, you would have found Mary McLeod Bethune's head on the dresser and Frederick Douglass's torso in a corner, and think John Brown in another corner and Nat Turner in another corner, and we started adding to that. And many people ask, why a wax museum? Um, for my late husband and for me, it goes back to the fact that we were educators. My husband Elmer on the faculty at Morgan. My husband Elmer very much a product of his time, of the black consciousness, black power, the raised fist, the big afro, that time. And his students at Morgan were complaining that learning black history and culture would be of no value. We were at that time when they were told that it would be a detriment to making it into corporate America, and the middle class dream and the corporate dream, or whatever the dream might be. And so that was very disconcerting for my Ngauer Black Power, Elmer, who was very much a product of the Black Consciousness movement. And so he said he thought too about an incident with a little 6-year-old, 7, somewhere in there, but Little League baseball player. Elmer organized a Little League team for Baltimore City kids, had ID pictures taken of them so that they could play in the league. And one of the little kids came to him, tears in his eyes, fists clenched, anger on his face, and demanded that Elmer make the photographer take the picture over. And so Elmer said he just automatically looked at it. He said, "Son, it's a great picture of you. Why do you want him to take it over?" And the kid said, "Because they got me too black in this picture. I don't want to be as black as they got me in this picture." And so he's talking to someone who was a part of the Black is Beautiful generation,
Right.
and say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, and all of that. And to have his college students say that career-wise it's possible to be too black, and then to have this kid, almost certainly a generation almost from the college students, who is saying that physically it's possible to be too black. And as we embraced wearing our afros and our dashikis and being black and proud and being black, we were the generation that decided that we were black and saw that as revolutionary, that we were no longer Negro and colored. Somebody else defined us as Negro and colored. We decided that we were black, and so to be a part of that time and that philosophy and that outlook, and to have college students rejecting the idea of their blackness being something that they should be proud of and embrace, and then this young kid, our future, saying, "I don't want to be as black as they got me in this picture." Elmer said he sat in his office in between teaching his classes at Morgan, asking himself, how did we get back to this point, and how did we get back to this point so quickly? And he said at the end of this very painful process, he said, we failed to institutionalize our history, to build institutions designed solely for the purpose of preserving our history and culture, and failing that, every generation was going to start from scratch. Because we weren't the first ones to say we were black and proud. I mean, Marcus Garvey said it, Martin Delany said it, any number of people. We called ourselves African Methodist Episcopal, and used, called each other Ethiopians and so forth. So there were people before us that had embraced the idea of cultural identity, but for us to have our kids and our college students rejecting that, it was taking us back to a place where we thought we'd arrived from. And So then we started thinking about, what do we do?
Mhm.
In the process, my husband and I wrote 4 books. The first one was on the Black extended family, and it was very groundbreaking, but it didn't reach the people that we felt we needed to reach.
Right.
And we had taken a trip to Potter's Wax Museum in St. Augustine, Florida.
Mhm.
And we'd gone there because I'm from Florida, and we'd gone to find a way to entertain my husband's grandmother who was visiting with us. And we took her to the Wax Museum. She was bored to tears, but my husband Elmer and I just thoroughly enjoyed that. We didn't see, often we saw figures that were depicted as white that we knew were black and
Right.
African. And so, that becomes a discussion too.
Correct.
And, but later on, when we were still looking for a way to do something that was going to matter,
Mhm.
um, we just flashed back to that trip to Potter's, and then just trying to find out, how how do you do this? Nobody would give us any information,
Mhm.
um, but we just my husband, um, who's loved libraries, he just spent a lot of time in the library and just started just putting the pieces together. And that's when we purchased the 4 wax figures and would take them around and then opened a small storefront in downtown Baltimore. And in 1988, we moved to a used firehouse
Mhm.
on North Avenue.
Mhm.
And again, going back to my husband's um, philosophy, that some of us have to be willing to stay in our communities, in our
Yes.
very fragile communities, that
Yes.
we all can't run away. And his idea of that conventional wisdom all over this nation is that you hide your poverty areas.
Mhm.
And once you succeed in hiding them, then you can succeed in neglecting them.
Mm.
But that we were going to create a museum that would be so compelling that people from all over the world were going to come to visit. And that has happened. Our numbers have been as high as 250,000 people a year. Today,
Wow.
we do about 150,000 a year, and 65% of those people come from out of state.
Wow.
So our visitors, particularly from the Mid-Atlantic, from New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and we just had a group from South Carolina, and South Carolina is definitely a part of our target audience. North Carolina has been for a long time. During spring break, they come from farther distances, so we always get a group and groups of people from Wisconsin from Minnesota, I'm sorry, for
Mhm.
some reason, LA, and so we've been able to show that people will come to our fragile community in the Oliver community of East Baltimore. They will come to a museum that they find compelling.
Mhm.
They will go back out and say, get down to that little museum in Baltimore. It's an experience that you will not forget.
So do you think your husband with this with the success that you've had since his passing, his vision? Do you see his vision coming being birthed? Both of your visions being birthed?
I absolutely do. We own all of the property in the 1600 block, and behind the museum, we demolished 53 crumbling buildings. We have an expansion plan, and so we are fundraising for a block-long museum. So that very much is a part of my husband's dream and his vision. I tell people that when they're walking around in the museum, it's like walking around in the head of Dr. Elmer Martin.
Wow.
Um, we hear people, about a week ago, we had the National Association of Black Storytellers visit, and they had an event um, at the museum. And one of them was from somewhere in the South, I think Georgia.
Mhm.
Someone was from Georgia, and she was talking about how someone told her about our museum,
Mhm.
and when she mentioned that she was going to be coming to Baltimore, she said they walked me through your museum. They could tell me everything that was there, and so when I tell people that it's like walking around in the head of Dr. Elmer Martin, it really is the idea that when people come to the museum, they're going to go back out and talk about it.
Exactly.
There, someone told me once that she said it's been probably been about 7 years since I've been to your museum, and she said, and I'm a museum person. I go to museums all the time. I really enjoy museums, but she said I walk out while I'm visiting a museum, I'm enthralled about what I'm seeing, but maybe you ask me a month later what I saw, and I can't remember about
Uh-huh.
that museum. She said, but I have never forgotten that your slave ship exhibit.
Wow. I see that you brought an item with you. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about that?
Okay, well, these are authentic slave chains. They are from the 1700s, so they're over 300 years old.
Wow.
I tell people that when I'm just interacting with these chains and touching them and so forth, that these will never be museum artifacts for me. When I think about the fact that my great 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 somebody may
Mm-hmm.
very well have been held in this, then it becomes something very very personal for me. And I would like for every person of African descent to feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
because that certainly could be the case. And I've had uh, white people and people of other races who want to come and touch this and talk about that they feel something personal too, either in the history that meant that someone close to them may very well have been the one who put us in this, or
Yes.
the idea that as a human being that they would never want to see anything like that happen. So I'd like to think that these chains engender any amount of humanity in us,
Mm.
as inhumane as they may have been, that they engender a certain humanity in the rest
And
of
these
us.
were actually placed on the arms and the neck.
Yes. And depending on the length of the chain, these smaller ones could have also been placed on the ankles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
very cruel system. And the idea that someone could have the mentality to create a system like that. But what I want our youth to understand is that despite the challenges, and there certainly are any number of challenges that exist today, but despite those challenges of this time and of this type of pain and torture, our ancestors had the strength to survive, and we are the evidence of that.
That's right. That's right.
And therefore, to respect that, they would probably, as we say in a piece that we have on in the museum, as a museum with a message, that our ancestors would want us to understand that they died by the millions. They would
Mm.
probably find it crazy the way we kill one another today,
Exactly.
and that they found education worth dying for. They want us to be able to live for it. Or they would know a slave ship if they saw one, but might be confused by what we call the prison, the jail, the penitentiary, because the similarities are frightening in the sense that you're talking in both cases about people being taken away in chains,
Yes.
given a number, branded, in one case a slave, in another case a criminal, made property of the slave master of the state,
Mm.
and in both cases confined.
And
So,
it sounds just like what happens when you go to prison, you go to
exactly,
jail.
exactly,
We
exactly.
talked about your vision, and it's very apparent that you have a vision and you have achieved that vision. Um, what is your mission or your goal with all that you're doing?
Um, I believe that we have to embrace community. That our children in a community like ours shouldn't always be led to believe that they have to leave their communities to find something worthwhile. And for me, I'd like Great Blacks to be one of those worthwhiles. We have a tour guide or docent training program for children age 14 to 21, and we teach them to be tour guides. And
Mm.
we say that we're not looking for when our priority is not the A and B students. They
Uh-huh.
can get placed anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but we want those students for whom education may be a struggle, and usually a struggle not because of their ability, but because they have not gotten the spark to
Correct.
learn, and that we light that spark in them. The sad thing for me is that having lit that spark, I'm not in a position to be able to hire them.
Right.
And that for me is the next step. The ways in which we need to be able to provide opportunities for our children
Correct.
and future generations. But sometimes our institutions are left in survival mode,
Correct.
and we spend so much time in survival mode that the things that we need to do in reaching out and bringing along another generation of children and making it possible that when I'm no longer here, that there was some young child who has that spark who can make sure that there's always going to be a great Blacks in Wax museum, whether Joanne or Elmer Martin are in the picture or not.
That's awesome. And speaking of that, let's talk about the expansion that is going on. This
Okay.
looks like an awesome, awesome building.
We want to change the face of North Avenue. It on the outside, the idea that you have something that is historically appealing. It's something that will grab you, that people will definitely see. On here we have this is where the museum is located now,
Mm-hmm.
on this end of North Avenue, and this is North Avenue, and this is where our administrative offices are. And this is a Victorian mansion that was built in 1893
Mm-hmm.
by the same architect that built Baltimore City Hall.
Mm.
And it's a magnificent building, but we want to be able to have an influence and an impact on all of North Avenue, and for those visitors that come from around the world, that they are coming to a museum that tells over 250,000 years of history. Right now, 5,000 years of history, but our plan is, and our exhibit design lays out 250,000 years or more of history.
Wow.
And our exhibits are even more compelling and mind blowing as will be then as they are now.
Well, this is beautiful. This
Thank
is
you.
beautiful. And have you all broke ground on this or?
We purchased all of the buildings on this block,
Wow.
we demolished 53 properties behind this block,
Mm.
and we are working with the city of Baltimore to somewhere around April when it warms up to demolish
Okay.
and break ground.
Well, I'm sure that there's a lot of people out here that want to be a part of such an historic event. Can you give them the information, your social media information, how to get in contact with you if they want to make donations,
Okay.
they want to help in any way?
Well, the museum is located at 1601 East North Avenue. Our phone number is 410 563 3404. Our website is greatblacksinwax.org, and we are on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm looking at your flyer. If we could get a close up on it, and I'm just impressed because it's always good to know where you started and actually know where you're heading,
Yes.
and to see the little storefront where you started at
Mm-hmm.
and you never gave up,
Never gave up.
and this is where you are today, but you also have a vision for where you're headed.
Exactly.
And the Bible says that without a vision, the people will perish.
Perish.
And so I think it's so great that you all hung in there, and now you are headed there. And I'm sure once you get there, you're going to be set your sights on greater than that.
Exactly. Exactly. And the idea that it's in a challenged but amazing community of East Baltimore, and that we can show that our institutions can thrive in our communities.
And that's good because you're giving back. Not you didn't leave to give back, but you stayed there and you're
Stay
giving
there to
back.
give
And
back.
I do believe that you will be able to someday hire those kids in that community like you desire to do.
Thank you.
We appreciate you so much for coming on today. If you could look into the camera and speak your heart and just say whatever you want to say to our listeners and viewers.
Okay. Well, I feel that sometimes people talk about what the museum means to them, and how proud they are of me and the museum. Um, but for me, I get so much reward. It's such a blessing that, as my husband said, of all the too tall people God could have chosen to build America's first Black History Wax Museum, He chose us, and that makes us two of the chosen. I truly believe that. I believe that God is definitely someone who has my back, and that I do what I do, and my husband Elmer did what we do, because we knew that we were um, given a blessing by God, and that we try to carry out His will. And I hope that he, both God and Elmer, are proud of me and what um, I and the people who he left, Elmer left behind to carry on in his stead. That he knows that we work very, very hard to follow the will of God, but being the bossy person that he was, to follow His will as well.
And proud, indeed, I'm sure he is of you, and we are as well. And we thank you for both of you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for this piece of our African American history being put in such a storefront, and I believe that it will come to pass.
Thank
And if
you.
you could just give them the information one more time
Okay.
so that they can, everyone who's out there can be a part of this and donate and help this vision become a reality.
We are located in East Baltimore at 1601 East North Avenue. We are the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum. Our phone number is 410-563-3404. Our web address is greatblacksinwax.org, and we are on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, Dr. Joanne Martin, I am so impressed and so honored to have had you on the show today. And I am really, really looking forward to it. I am coming and bring my
Please,
grandbaby on
thank you.
tour
Thank you.
of the facility today. But I know that facility will be prosperous and do great things for not just the African Americans or our black community, but for all
Absolutely.
people to know
Absolutely.
of our great history and
Thank,
contributions to this great world that we live in.
thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
once again for being a part of our show today.
Thank you.
We'll be right back on the Jackie Griffin Show.